Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. I haven't finished the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, have I? Well, gather round the telly, citizens, gather round, and I'll tell you how it ends. We last left the town of Hamelin filled with rats, horrible rats, eating them out of house and home. But a piper in a motley coat has promised to get rid of every last rat by playing music to them. But he expects a lot of money, and they've agreed to pay for it. What will happen? The next day, the piper came into town, and this time he had a different pipe with him. It was a tiny pipe, made of horn, and no one could even hear the music that it played. But soon, out of every barn and every field, out of every kitchen and every storehouse, all of the rats of the town swarmed towards the Pied Piper. They came out of the church, they came out of the town hall, they came up out of the well, they came out of the cupboards, they came out of the haystacks. Soon, the entire village square was covered in rats, until you could not see a bare patch of dirt. And then, the piper began to walk. He walked away from the village. He walked into the dark forest in a direction that no one thought had a path. No one knew exactly where he went, for no one wanted to go anywhere near the enormous swarm of rats. Well, the villagers celebrated. They took their cheese out of their strong boxes, and they took their bread out of their stone ovens. Everything they'd been afraid of the rats eating, they took out. But as the villagers were settling down to drinking, the Pied Piper returned, and he told the people, "And now it is time to pay the piper." Well, the villagers, they were wicked people. They asked the piper if he'd killed all the rats, and he promised that they'd never see the rats again. At this, the villagers were delighted. "Why should we pay the piper?" they asked each other. "The rats are gone." They told him to be off, and when he demanded his money, they beat him until he was bleeding, and they threatened to throw him in the well until he drowned. The piper left, and they thought that they'd never see him again. But the next morning, the piper was back. This time, he had a very large, long pipe made out of long, long bone. You could still see the bruises on his face as he walked into the village square. But he did not seem afraid. He did not seem like a man who could ever be afraid. The villagers gathered to warn him off. Hadn't he had enough punishment? Be off with him? Then he began to play his long bone pipe. The sounds were so low that no one could hear him. But they were all struck dumb, and they found that they could not move to strike the piper, nor could they leave. And out of every house came every villager who was not already in the town square, out of the church, and out of the town hall, and out of the pub, and out of the baker's, and out of the cheese shop. Even the lame smith limped from his forge to the town square. And then the piper began to walk. He walked away from the village. He walked into the dark forests in a direction that no one thought had a path. And the villagers all followed him. Only the lame smith couldn't keep up, although he tried his best. And it's a good thing too, for otherwise we'd never know what happened. For the villagers disappeared into the dark woods. The smith lost all track of them. Among the trees he could not tell what direction the piping was, and soon he couldn't hear it at all for the songs of the birds and the whisper of the trees. He lay down, and he wept for a day and a night, for the music had so moved him that he wished he'd been fast enough to follow it. The smith came out of the forest. He came to an inn, and there he told the story of the villagers of Hamelin, and he waited a year and a day for them to come back. And on the 366th day, he hanged himself. The town of Hamelin rotted in the rain until nothing was left of it but misshapen mounds that strangers thought must be from ancient times. The villagers, they were never seen again. nor was the piper, though perhaps he was. For there are villages in old books that are not there now, and who knows if they too vanished in the woods to the piper's tune. Who knows if this is a true story or just a fairy tale? But somehow you know that it must be true, because who could invent such a horror? That's the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. What a wonderful story. I hope you enjoyed hearing it as much as I enjoyed telling it. And remember, stay at home at night or terrible things may happen in the dark. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for another bedtime story. Good night all. See you tomorrow.